Hey, welcome to The Explainer. So, have you ever had one of those huge, brilliant ideas, but then you just stop, completely overwhelmed by how to actually make it happen? Whether it's launching a new product or maybe just finally building that deck in the backyard. Well, there's a whole discipline dedicated to turning those big goals into a finished reality, and today we're diving deep into the world of project management.
Right, so let's start with that big question. How do you actually get it done? And look, it might seem like some kind of magic, but it's not. It's really a structured process. And that whole process begins with understanding the single most basic building block of any major achievement.
Okay, so before we can even think about managing a project, we first have to agree on what a project actually is. Now, that might sound simple, but getting this definition right is absolutely crucial because it helps us separate these special efforts from all the other work we do every single day.
So, what is a project? At its heart, it's a temporary mission. Let's go back to building that deck. You have a very clear objective, right? A beautiful wooden deck. It's temporary. You're not going to be building it for the rest of your life. There's a start date and a finish date. And the result? It's unique. You end up with one new finished deck.
One of the best ways to understand what something is to understand what it isn't. So, once your deck is built, that was the project, mowing the lawn around it every Saturday, well, that's an operation. It's ongoing, it's repetitive, it's continuous. And that's the key difference right there. Projects create something new, while operations are all about maintaining what's already there.
Okay, so if we dig a little deeper, every single project is juggling these key ingredients. Let's stick with our deck example. You've got stakeholders, that's your family who wants the deck. There's always uncertainty. What if it rains for a week straight or the price of lumber suddenly shoots up? And you are always working within constraints. You want it done by the big summer party? That's time. You have a strict budget? That's cost. And you've agreed on a specific 10 by 12 foot design. That's scope. That trio, time, cost, and scope, is what's famously known as the triple constraint of pretty much any project you can think of.
All right, so we've got a handle on what a project is. Now, how do we actually go about building it? Well, it turns out there isn't just one way to get from point A to point B. There are really two main philosophies, two totally different kinds of blueprints you can follow. So on one side, you've got the traditional method, which people often call waterfall. Think of this like building a house from a super detailed blueprint. You do everything in a strict step-by-step sequence. First the foundation, then the framing, then the roof. You don't put the roof on before the foundation, right? Its biggest strength is predictability. Then, on the other side, you've got agile. Think of this more like developing a new app. You build one core feature, you release it, you get feedback from users, and then you use that feedback to plan your next short burst of work or sprint. It's built for a world where you actually expect things to change. It's all about being flexible instead of sticking to a rigid plan.
But here's the really cool part. It doesn't matter which blueprint you choose, waterfall or agile. Every single project on Earth goes through the same fundamental life cycle. First up is initiation. This is where you decide, hey, should we even build a deck? Then comes planning. You're drawing up the designs, making a materials list. Next, implementation. The sawdust flies, the hammers are swinging, and the actual work gets done. And finally, closing. You sweep up, put the tools away, and you officially call it a success by, throwing that party.
Okay, but projects don't just happen in a bubble, right? They live inside of companies. And this brings up a huge frustration for so many people. Have you ever been at work and just wondered, why is it so ridiculously hard to get a simple decision made around here? Well, a huge part of the answer has to do with how the company itself is set up.
In this table, this explains so much of that frustration. In what's called a functional company, organized by old-school departments like marketing, engineering, etc., a project manager basically has to go around and beg for people's time. They have very little authority. Now, on the complete opposite end is a projectized company. Here, the project is king and the project manager has almost total control. But most of us, we live somewhere in the middle, in what's called a matrix. And this is where you report to both your department boss and your project manager. If you've ever felt like you're being pulled in two different directions at work, yep, this is probably why.
So really, all these different structures are just a company's best shot at solving this one big puzzle. How do we keep the day-to-day business running smoothly while also building new things? The matrix is the most common answer, because it tries to get the best of both worlds. Even if, let's be honest, it sometimes feels like you're getting the worst of both.
Okay, for this last part, let's zoom all the way out to the highest possible level. If projects live inside companies,
How do companies decide which projects get to live at all? It's time to talk about what I like to call the Project Hunger Games. Seriously.
In this quote right here from the legendary strategist Michael Porter, it just nails it. No company, no person, nobody can do everything. There just isn't enough time or money or people. So strategy at its core is really about making hard choices. It's about setting limits. It's about deciding which projects get the green light and which ones, well, don't make the cut.
So think about it. The whole process kicks off with this massive flood of ideas, right? Everybody's got a proposal for the next big thing. But reality hits pretty fast. The choice of which projects move forward is driven by what actually fits with the company's big picture strategy, and this is huge, what gives the company an edge that its competitors can't just go out and copy tomorrow.
Yeah, a really good way to picture this is to think of a bunch of screens or filters, like a funnel. Maybe 100 ideas go in the top, but then they have to pass through a screen for, does this fit our strategy? Then another for, do we have the budget? Then another for, can we actually pull this off? By the time you get to the bottom, only a tiny handful of ideas make it all the way through to become actual funded projects.
And some of these filters are, well, they're pretty intense. Get a load of this one, a scrub down. It sounds dramatic because it is. You literally bring your project idea to a room full of experts whose only job is to try and murder it by pointing out every single possible flaw and weakness. It is a genuine trial by fire, and you better believe only the strongest, most well-thought-out ideas survive.
So you see, from that simple deck in your backyard, all the way up to a multi-billion-dollar corporate strategy, it all boils down to making choices about what to build. And here's the thing to remember. For every single project you choose to do, there are dozens, maybe hundreds, that you are actively choosing not to do. That's true for a company, and it's absolutely true for you and me. So the final question is, what are you building?